Hello students, I'm going to go over some examples of the practice test for the final. It's the final review too. I'm going to go kind of fast. If you need to pause the video, go ahead. But the first one I'm going to go over is 78, which says 4x squared minus 16x equals 0. Whenever we have only two terms or a binomial and both of them have an x, then we can look for the greatest common factor, GCF, and I noticed that for the number, for both, the greatest common factor is 4. If we have x on both, then we include the one with the smallest exponent. That's part of the GCF. And then we start dividing. 4x squared divided by 4x is x. Negative 16x divided by 4x is negative 4. Because negative divided by positive is negative, 16 divided by 4 is 4, and x divided by x, we just cancel it, so that's it. When it says solve, it's because you have an equation, and that equation should be equal to 0, okay? For the solution, usually they might ask you for the process. In here, I'm just asking you to just find the answer, but I'm gonna show you where does this answer come from. So this is one factor, this is another factor. Each factor you're going to equal it to 0. So 4x equals 0, and then x minus 4 equals 0. Then you're going to start solving for that x. Since here is multiplication, the opposite of multiplication is division. And so x is equals to 0 divided by 4 is 0. Or if we're subtracting, the opposite of subtraction is addition. This cancels and x equals 0 plus 4 is 4. So the two possibilities are x equals 0 or x equals 4. If you remember, if you're not asked to do the process, I told you that whenever you're not adding or subtracting for one of the factors, then that means that the value of x is always going to be 0. Or when you're subtracting or adding, it's just the opposite of that. Okay, so if it's minus 4, then it's going to be positive 4. So you can go directly from here. Once you factor, you can go directly to the answer, or you can show your process. For the next ones, I'm just going to go directly to the answer, okay? 78, I'm going to do 81 as well. So 81 says x to the 5th power equals x to the 4th. So I said that to be able to solve for x, you have to have an equation, and then it has to be equal to 0. So we're going to cancel by subtracting x to the 4th power from both sides. Don't make the mistake in subtraction, you cannot combine terms if they don't have the same exponent. So you're just going to write x to the 5th minus x to the 4th. And in here, we already have 0. Since both terms have a variable, then outside, or the greatest common factor, is going to be x with the smallest exponent, which is 4. We open our parentheses and start dividing. X to the 5th power divided by x to the 4th is going to be x. Negative divided by positive is negative. And anything divided by itself, x to the 4th divided by x to the 4th, it's 1. Again, we said that whenever x doesn't have a subtraction or addition, then the value of x is going to be 0. Or if we're subtracting, that means that x is going to be 1. The opposite of whatever is being added or subtracted. Okay, now we're going to go to the ones that have let me do number 83. We're going to do this, and it says to factor only, okay? Somebody said, what is the difference between factoring and solving? Okay, solving is finding what the value of x is going to be. For factoring, we cannot do that. Why? Well, 83 says x squared minus 5x plus 6. The reason for which we cannot solve is because it doesn't say equal to something else, okay? So in this case, we're only going to find the two factors for this trinomial. So we put the last number on the top. Remember that we're looking for two numbers that multiply equals that number, and the middle coefficient in the bottom. In here, we're trying to add. This tells me if it's positive, then we're going to add the two factors. If this is negative, then we're going to subtract these two factors. What two numbers multiply equals positive 6, but added equals negative 5? Well, let me tell you that when the last one is positive, that means that both factors will have this sign. Okay, when this is positive, both will be the sign in the middle. In this case, negative. So two numbers that multiply equals 6, but when you add them equals negative 5. Well, when you add them, 2 times 3 is 5, but because they're both negative, then negative 2 and negative 3 is negative 5. So now we can just check. Negative 2 times negative 3, yes, is positive 6. Negative 2 and negative 3, when added, yeah, that's negative 5. So we just open our parentheses and put x minus 2, x minus 3. And that's all we need to do. Again, when it says factor, you're just finding the two factors. When it says solve, it should have equals 0, and then you put equals 0, and then it's the opposite, okay? But if it doesn't say solve, you cannot solve it. Okay, the next one, x squared plus 6x plus 8. In here, the last number is 8. The middle coefficient is 6. Two numbers that multiply equals 8, but added equals 6. Well, and if you're not sure what you can do, remember that because it's plus, you're going to add them. So 1 times 8, when you add them, is not 6, it's 9. 2 times 4 is also 8. When you add them, yeah, that's 6. Okay, so 2 times 4. When this is positive, both of them have this sign, so both are positive. And then we check 2 times 4, 8. 2 plus 4, 6. Yeah, it makes sense. So we put x plus 2, x plus 4. And that's all we need to do. Number 87, x squared minus 5x minus 6. Don't mind my diamonds. So the last one is negative 6. The middle one is negative 5. Okay, when the last one is negative, it tells you 3 things. First one is that you're going to have one positive and one negative. Okay, one positive and one negative. The other thing is that you're going to subtract the two factors. And the last thing is that this sign goes with the biggest number, or the biggest number will get the same sign as the one in the middle, okay? So what are factors of 6? I'm not going to pay attention to the signs right now. I just need to know that they subtract and that it has to give me a 5, again, without thinking about this right now. So I have 1 times 6 is 6, 2 times 3 is also 6, and that's all. Which ones subtracted, right? Subtracted gives me 5. Well, 6 minus 1 is 5, because if we do 3 minus 2, that will be 1, and this is not a 1, okay? The other thing, once we subtract them and it gives me that number, then I look at, this is negative, so the bigger one is going to be negative. Which one of the two that did subtract to 5 is bigger? The 6. That means that the smallest one is 1, and so that's positive. I open the parentheses. Oh, but check first. Negative times positive is negative. 6 times 1 is 6. And then when we subtract negative 6 and 1, well, 6 minus 1 is 5, and get the greater sign, that's negative 5. So it makes sense. So now we do x minus 6, x plus 1. And those are my two factors. 88. Okay. With two numbers multiplied equals negative 2, and subtracted gives me positive 1. Well, the factors of 2 is only 1 times 2. This is positive. That means that that's the sign of the bigger one. That means that the smallest one gets the other sign, which is negative. And now we check. Negative 1 times 2, negative 2. Negative 1 plus 2. Remember that different sign, subtract and get the greater sign. 2 minus 1 is 1, and the greater sign is positive. So yes, it makes sense. X minus 1, x plus 2. Those are my two factors. For the next section, it says solve. And so I'm going to do number 90. Remember that if I don't do the sum of them, you can continue to practice. You have the answers as well. Okay, 90 says x squared plus 10x plus 9 equals 0. See how this has an equation, meaning that it has an equal sign? That's when you're going to solve for x, meaning not only do the factors, but then find what the value of x would be to make it equal to 0. And so in here, one numbers multiplied equals 9, but added equals 10. Well, both of them have to have the same sign. When this is positive, both are this sign, in this case positive. So factors of 9 is 1 times 9, 3 times 3. Which ones, when we add them, equals 10? Well, this one. And again, because this is positive, both will be the middle sign. So positive 1 times positive 9. 1 times 9 is 9. 1 plus 9 is 10. We open parentheses, and we put x plus 1, x plus 9. What is the value of x? Remember that we're trying to get for this factor to be 0 or this factor to be 0, because 0 times anything will be equals to 0. So x has to be negative 1 or negative 9, because the negative 9 plus 9 makes it 0, and this one, negative 1 plus 1 equals 0, okay? When it says solve, find the value. When it says factor, don't find the value of x. Okay, for this one, the last number is negative 24. The middle term has a negative 2 as a coefficient. What numbers of 24? Notice again, I'm not paying attention to the signs, but I know that I have to subtract them because this sign tells me to subtract them. That they are going to be 1 and 1, and that this is the sign of the bigger one, okay? Anyways, right now, 1 times 24 is 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6, 5, we cannot factor, it's not a factor of 24, 6, it repeats, so we're just going to repeat, so that's all. Which ones, when we subtract them, this last sign tells me that I'm going to subtract them, equals 2, ignoring the negative, okay? Well, when I subtract this one, it's 23. When I subtract this one, it's 10. When I subtract this one, it's 5. When I subtract this, is 2. So it's these two factors, 4 and 6. This also tells me, right, when the last one is negative, is that one is negative and one is positive. Which one is the negative? Because the middle term has a negative, that means that the bigger one is negative. Okay, this sign goes with the bigger one of the two factors. We open parentheses and we put x plus 4, x minus 6. Because it's an equation equal to 0, then we say that x is equals to negative 4, remember that it's the opposite, or positive 6. Okay. Okay, in this case, we don't have this equal to 0, so we're going to have to cancel that. So it's subtracting 6x, the opposite is to add 6x. This cancels and you get 0. In here, this is not like terms with the other two terms, so we're just going to bring it down in the middle because we have to have it in descending order. And then we do the diamond. The last one is 5. Both are positive, so that means that we're multiplying to add, and both are going to be the middle sign. So 6, what two numbers are factors of 5, but when you add them equals 6? Well, the only factors of 5 is 1 times 5. 1 times 5 is 5, 1 plus 5 is 6. We open parentheses, and my two factors are x plus 1, x plus 5. And the value of x is the opposite, so negative 1, or the opposite is negative 5. So the only difference is that we have to cancel that to make it equal to 0 first. Okay, in here, the same thing. Since we have something on this side, we're going to subtract that from both sides to make it equal to 0. And we get x squared plus 4x minus 12. The last one is negative. What do we have to do? 3 pieces of information that this negative tells us. The first one, you're going to have one positive and one negative. The second thing that we need to know is that we're going to subtract them, not add them. And the third one is that, what is the third one? Okay, the first one is that you are going to have 1 and 1. Oh, the third one is that because this middle term is positive, then the bigger factor will be with the positive. Sorry about that. So 12. Factors of 12 is 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. Which ones, when we subtract them, equals 4? When we subtract this is 1, when we subtract this is 4, so that's it, because this one will be 11 when we subtract them, okay? So the other piece of information is that this sign goes with the bigger factor, so 6 is going to be positive, and the 2 is going to be negative. And it makes sense because positive 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. But when we subtract them, 6 minus 2 is 4, and we keep the greater sign, which is positive, okay? We open our parentheses and we get x plus 6, x minus 2. The value of x is the opposite. So x equals negative 6 or positive 2. Okay. For the next section, we're going to factor, but these are one of those special squares. We have difference of squares and we have perfect squares. So x squared minus 9. Factoring means we're not going to find the value of x. So all you have to do is open parentheses. Remember, when we have a perfect square and minus in the middle, all you have to do is take the square root of the first one, the square root of x squared is x, and put it on both. Square root of the second one, which is 3, but then positive times negative is this negative. So that's all you have to do, okay? And that's only when you have perfect square minus another perfect square. Okay, 103. 4x squared minus 25. Same thing, this is a perfect square. This is also perfect square. All you have to do is open parentheses. The square root of the first one is, well, it's 2x, because 2x times 2x is 4x squared. And we put it on both. One positive, one negative, and the square root of 25 is 5. So that's my answer. Something that I said, what if this was an equation, 4x squared minus 25 equals 0? Well, the first thing you have to do, see the difference between factoring and solving, okay? This is solving for x. We open the parentheses. The square root of the first one is 2x. Square root of the second one is 5. One positive, one negative. And then for the value of x, remember when we have a coefficient, when we say the opposite of this is negative 5, but it's because if we're adding, we cancel by subtracting. And if we're multiplying, we cancel by dividing. Okay, remember that is because you put the opposite of the constant divided by the coefficient of x. So that's my first value. Or positive 5 divided by the coefficient of x, which is 2. These are my two values, okay? For this one, this is a perfect square and this is a perfect square. Whenever you have that, look at this. If we divide the middle term by 2, it gives me 3. The square root of the last one of 9 is also 3. When that happens, that means that my factors, or this is a perfect square, so it's going to be x plus 3. And that's squared, okay? So that's going to be the answer. Making sure that this sign is the sign of the middle one. Okay? The next one, we have x squared minus 100 equals 0. And we can solve this by canceling. However, we're going to factor. We have the square root of x squared is x, one positive, one negative, and the square root of 100 is 10. Again, because we have equals to 0, x is equals to the opposite, which is negative 10, or the opposite is positive 10. So these are my two answers. We're almost there. Two more. So this is a perfect square, this is a perfect square, and it has minus in the middle. That's why we can do this. Open the two parentheses. Square root of the first one is 3x, 3x. Square root of the second one is 2, 2. So one positive, one negative. For these ones, we're going to solve just like the last one, only because it has equal to 0. So x is equals to opposite of the constant, so negative 2, divided by the coefficient over 3. Only because there is something with the x, okay? Then second one is opposite of the second one over the coefficient. We change the sign of the constant, but not the coefficient, okay? Last one. Yes. So again, this is perfect square, and we do have something in the middle. So what is half of the middle term? A divided by 2 is 4. What is the square root of the last one? The square root of 16 is 4. Since it's the same, we're just going to put that. X, the square root of 16 is 4, and the middle term, the middle sign, okay, equals 0. When we have perfect squares, meaning that half of this is the same as the square root of this, then that means that we're going to have only one answer. Since this is positive, the opposite of positive is -4. Only one answer. And that's only for perfect squares. Okay, with that, we end our review. I hope it helps and have fun.